This is the Sturmey-Archer automatic 2-speed internal assembly. The axle is shorter on the right side. Clamp it in a vise on the axle flats with the right side facing up. The first part is the planet cage assembly with the circular side facing down. The next part is the driver adapter with the pawls facing down, and these notches will engage the planet assembly. A small snap ring holds it on the axle. Use some special grease in the notches of the adapter. The next part is a special washer. There is a recessed area on one side that goes down with the smooth side facing up. Assemble the ball cup and driver. Use some Castrol LMX grease in the ball bearing area. The balls go down into the cup, and then the pawls will have to pass the ball. You can push on one, it fits together very easily and rotates freely. Then use the special grease on the ratchet area. And the assembly should rotate clockwise easily. Just the ball cup will move, the driver will also move. Then some LMX grease in the ball bearing area. Thread on the right cone. Tighten the cone down until it touches the bearings, and back it off 1/4 turn. Then install the right lock nut. And use a 16mm cone wrench and a 17mm opened end wrench and torque to 8.5 Newton meters. Then invert the assembly, clamp it by the right side of the axle. Next, install the gear ring assembly and use some special grease on the teeth. Put a dab of grease in the small holes where the shift weight pins go. Install the pins into the holes. The grease will hold them in place while you install the gear ring down. Make sure it engages the planet cage and rotates. Next is the actuator plate. If you look at it closely, there is a narrow gap here with a wider gap here. The narrow gap is counterclockwise from the larger gap. If you install it this way, it will be wrong. Make sure the narrow gap is counterclockwise from the larger gap. Install it with these small ovals over the weight pins and engage the pawls, and you will notice that it opens and closes the pawls. Next is a small silver thrust washer and the E-clip that holds the assembly together. If the E-clip does not go in easily, you may have to readjust the right side cone and lock nut looser a little bit. The E-clip should sit down in the groove and rotate easily. Next, these shift springs have no direction one way or the other. Just make sure that when you install them on the pin, one end is facing counterclockwise as viewed from above, and that the end is underneath the actuator plate. So again, make sure the pin, one of the ends of the spring slides down underneath, and the end that you put underneath faces counterclockwise as viewed from above. Then, centrifugal shift weight, install a little grease in the pivot hole, and with the pin on the weight facing down, install it on the pin while holding the spring counterclockwise. The weight goes down on the pin, and the pin on the weight engages this radial slot on the actuator plate. You may test it. The spring should open and close the weight, return it. Same thing on the other side. Hold the spring counterclockwise while installing the weight, and the pin on the weight goes into the radial slot. Finally, install the small circlips on the pivots to hold the weights in place. These E-clips should be replaced every time the hub is serviced. Test the mechanism to see that the springs are returning the weights inward. And then you're done.